Trash can. Hello, hello. Stephanie, how are you? Hi. Long time no see, girlfriend. What you been up to? We're gonna paint this tonight. Look how beautiful. Oh, honey. Hi, Sonny. How are you? Thanks for stopping by. Hello, hello. Look, I've been looking forward to this all day. If you're here, say hello so I know you're here, because this is different than any of my other platforms. I would just love to acknowledge that you're here. Kathleen is here. Hi, Kathleen. Thanks for hopping over here. I'm going to go through the supplies really quickly that we're going to need for tonight's painting. I hope y'all enjoy this. Elizabeth, hi. How are you, Elizabeth? I gotta see you, girl. I gotta see you and get my Elizabeth fix, right? Look, we're trying something new. So we're gonna see how all this goes tonight. I would love your input as well with lighting and all the things. So real quick, let's go over the supplies that I'm using. Probably the best ever vintage find that I've ever found in my life is this little lady. It's some sort of egg dish, and I believe at one time it had a lid on it because there's like this little lip where something would have sat on there. I even Google lensed that to see if I could figure out what it was and couldn't find anything. I use this for my watercolor. So my clean water, we're gonna go ahead and pop in the middle. I'm gonna do a couple of these because this allows me to have a clean and a dirty water, and then I can mix some colors along the way too. Let me take just a little bit out of there. So you don't have to have this. You can get a little plastic, something at the craft store would work fine. In our personal Picasso sale, wow, we have 26 people watching. Thank y'all so much. Lord, y'all gonna give me the big head. In our personal Picasso sale is our travel watercolor palette. Now, I never clean mine out. I wouldn't say never, but I'm close to it. I just keep mixing in those colors. This is in the buy one, get one half sale. And look, let me mention something about that. If you have put, let's say you've put a tube of paint in the sale, that's maybe you got a couple tubes of paint in there, and then you threw in a paintbrush, the 50% comes off the lowest priced item you have in the cart. So if you're trying to even out and like buy all of your paints to get one, buy one and get one half, put all your paints on one order, then put your brushes on a different order, put your online classes on a different order, and you can maximize the discount that way. Okay, so you're going to need this. Also, in addition, I'm using one of these gold leafings. This is the Glitz, Glamour and Glitz. I know I could use a full-size gold leafing sheet, but it's not as bright as this. This is what I have used for the trim right around here. So while it takes me a little bit to put this on here, it's worth it. And if you are subscribing tomorrow, this will be up on our website. If you're subscribing to get the pattern, the class dropped into your portal, and the print from me, your print will actually have this gold on there. You're gonna need some tape. This is like a masking tape, but it's not masking tape. This is specifically for watercolor painters. It's a little bit stickier than masking tape. You can use masking tape though, would work just fine, but I prefer this one. I have a paper cutter, and then I have 2 shades of glitter that I'm gonna use for this area. I know all of y'all have glitter, but I'm using Wisteria and Doll Face. Thank you, Elizabeth. Wisteria and Doll Face. I know Doll Face is retired, but I'm sure you have something like it. Water, of course. I have distilled water in here. I'm also using a glue pen from Michaels. I'll explain this when I get there. This is not any glue pen. It's a 2-way glue pen. All right. Kind of slide that over. I've gone ahead and printed my pattern so you can kind of know what that looks like. In case you're not a hand drawer, if you can't draw a stick figure, honey, not to worry. This is how your pattern looks when it prints. I've done it in sketch format. Now this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of watercolor paper. I use a 90-pound watercolor, so it goes through my printer really well. If you use anything any heavier, it's going to get jammed up in your printer. And so this image is formatted to print full size. I have shrunk it. When you hit your print button, it'll ask you, do you want to scale it? I have scaled it to 39%. 39% prints it 3 by 4. But you can see here, I've scaled it down even more, and I've gotten 3 of those on this particular paper. So anything heavier than 90-pound weight will completely jam up that printer. So try to stay with that, of course. And now we're just going to trim it with the paper cutter. I don't choose any settings on my printer. I don't choose best print. I just let it print because it's light enough. You know, you don't need best printing for that. And now we're going to measure because this has to be right at 4 inches this way. 4.5, maybe a little bit longer, 4 3/4. 4 3/4. Hey Jess, thanks for joining. Y'all, who's watching this on your TV tonight? If you've got this blown up on your TV, can you tell me if the orientation is correct? I'm thinking it's not. I believe I might have had to have chosen that when I set up the live, but I'm not exactly sure. I would like it to be full screen, but I don't know if it is full screen. If not, then we will fix that before we do this again. All right, because I have this mat on my desk here, this is just a crafter's mat. We are going to tape this down to the mat, but not before we heat set it. What has happened is this is printer ink. Printer ink is not waterproof. So if you're using a pattern that you're printing, obviously, and you touch this, your watercolor or your water gets in here, it's going to spread that printer ink into your painting. So you either need to set this with an iron. If you're using an iron, you're just going to iron over top it, or you need a really hot hair dryer. I'm going to use what I dry my watercolors with. This is the bottom of a Conair curling brush, and that curling brush pops off the top of here. This is what I use for my alcohol inks too. And it heats up to, right now it's on 125 degrees. I can take it over to 250. I don't really need to. I just use the 125, turn it on high, and we're gonna heat set this really, really good. Laser printer ink is waterproof, but not on porous paper. Watercolor paper is textured, so it's going to print that, it's going to pick that up in there somewhere, Marcy. So be sure that you heat set your pattern. Just heat setting the pattern. There we go. If you look at watercolor paper under a microscope, it's full of little waffles. And that's what makes your ink move around. Okay, so now this is the watercolor tape. I get this at a local art store. Again, you can use painter's tape or masking tape if you would like. I like to tape this so I have just a little tiny edge, just like that. Really stick that down, and you can see on my original what I'm talking about. You can see where my tape has been. I love that clean edge. around. Hi, Diane. I cannot believe all of y'all came over here. Thank you. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Tammy. If you don't have a work mat like I have this on my fancy schmancy desk here in my office. I actually have a silicone mat down, and then I have this one I keep on top of it, just so if I were to have an acetone spill, that it doesn't go through to the finish on my desk. If you don't have this, you can put your watercolor on a clipboard. Just tape it down to a hard surface of some sort. If you don't have a clipboard, I know all of y'all have got an Amazon box that you can tape it down to, right? A piece of cardboard works fine. So this is the prep that we do, you know, behind making the watercolor work here. Did y'all have a good day? Some of y'all have really taken advantage of our sale. Thank you. If you didn't hear me when I first started, so the buy one, get one half off, our system takes the half off the least expensive item in your cart. Well, we can't control that. It's just the way the discount code sets up in the back of Shopify. So if you're wanting to grab, I was saying earlier, put all your paints on one order so you can maximize the discount. Then put all your brushes on one order so you can maximize that. Put all your online classes on a different order. And you will save a ton of money if you'll put your orders in that way. Okay, watercolor palette. This is the little travel palette we're going to use, and I have a mini 3D brush. I love using this for my watercolor on paper, so this one has not been put in gel. We're going to use this kind of pinky color. Let's go ahead and take our water. I'm going to be using that blue. We mix this pink and that blue to make purple, and then we're going to use both of these greens and a little bit of that yellow right there. I'm going to go ahead and hydrate what I already have on here because I had that mixed up when I painted this yesterday. Watercolor is absolutely fabulous for rehydration. And again, this little palette is in the buy one, get one half off. Okay, let's see. Can we fit all this in here? Can you guys see okay? I'm gonna bring my little egg dish over to the side. This is what I rinse my colors in. Never throw away your watercolor paper that you cut off. You can use this for all kinds of little itty bitty projects. I know I'm not going to be able to fit all this in screen, but I will try. I will try. All right, we're going to take plain water here, and we're going to do a plain water wash on the background of the heart. Just plain water. Make sure your brushes are really clean before you start this. I try not to get over into these hearts too much, but sometimes you can't help it. Just plain water. This little travel watercolor palette is good if you're just getting into watercolor to see if you like it before you make an investment into a bigger palette. What this is going to do is wet this paper. We're going to learn a technique to start with called wet on wet floating wash. Now, I don't know if you can see my paper's bubbling up a little. That's why we tape it down. Okay. We go into our pink. I'm gonna go right over here. I don't even care that there's yellow there. I'm okay with that. More water means more translucent color. And now we just kind of start this little pink wash where we laid that water down. We want to keep this super wet so that we can work this color. I'm going to go right over top of those hearts. It's not going to hurt a thing. And we do just really a haphazard pink wash in the background of that. And I'm using the pattern tonight just so that if you're going to download this pattern tomorrow, so you'll know how to do it once you get it. Okay, that is really, really nice and wet. We're going to take some concentrated of the pink and go into that purple. And now we're going to take the concentrated blue. I don't even wash my brush. And we go right in here and we're going to make, look at that vibrant purple we just made. Oh, honey, isn't that pretty? And you got to work kind of quickly mixing that color because the surface is still wet of our heart here. The light is coming in from this direction here. So now we're going to touch and we're going to watch that flood. There are some fabulous watercolor coloring books at Barnes & Noble and Hobby Lobby. I've gotten some really nice ones there. I've gotten some duds from the Zon because they don't have watercolor paper in them. And that's essential that you're watercoloring on watercolor paper because that paper will just fall apart on you. Now I'm going to go back into my pink and I'll start to lay that pink just kind of in here. I also keep some Q-tips handy where that water's just kind of trying to move there. I just blot it with my Q-tip. And let's go just a little bit right in here. A little bit more concentration on the pink. Remember, light's coming in from this side, so we don't want to get that too awfully dark up into the top of here. And now we just kind of let that hang out there just for a second. You love it? Thanks for joining, Ramona. Y'all know I love my blue shop towels, right? We're going to tear a little piece of that, and this is going to become our blotter. You can see in the original how this side is lighter than this one. All right, and we're going to blot. With watercolor, we either have to let it dry or we have to make it dry. And that's all I'm going to blot, and I'm going to dry this now with my same little tool. I don't worry about any watercolor that creeps outside of my lines because that actually gives it some really nice character. Now I'm going to deepen this a little bit. I'm going to go back into that purple I mixed up in my palette just because I want the edge of this just a tiny bit darker. And now because that paper's not wet, the darker concentration is staying right here on the outer perimeter. If y'all love these classes, I will try and do more of these for you. And just a little water to kind of sort of help blend that out. And do the same thing, go in the concentrated pink and bring that over into here. Just a little bit of water. I don't want you to get hung up on the heart so much because while she's front and center focus, she kind of isn't at the same time. So now take your blotter and blot. And the heart portion looks like she's done. Let's dry. That's pretty. If you were a color, what color would you be? Girl, what do I have it attached to? This is the mat that's on my desk. I have it taped down to. Let's bring in my little deviled egg dish. I'm going to put in some clean water here. Let's go into this very lightest yellow. We want to make an extremely pale translucent yellow, which means a lot of water. And while the rest of that heart is drying, it's not fully dry, but while she dries, we kind of got to go twofold here. Let's see if I can fit this in just like that. Yes, I can. So now down here on our flower petals, we're going to, let's just check our color. That's not quite dark enough. A little bit more yellow. A little bit more. I'll know when I see it. Okay, that's about it right there. So we're gonna go with that. You know how we put the clear wash, the clear water wash down here before we did the color? We're gonna use the yellow tint for a wash on the flowers. I still want just a tiny bit more. There we go. So now there's the wash on the flower. While that's wet, I'm going to go into this pink kind of concentration here, and I'm going to touch right down here close to the center of the flower. And as that dries, that's just going to kind of spread and variegate the flower petal. Okay, and so she doesn't stay in that little blob right there. You can take a little water on your brush and just lightly touch at the top, and that's just going to float on out through there. About right there. Now, don't want to do the petal right beside of her because wet jumps onto wet. And if this petal is wet, she's going to float all over into that petal. So wash out your brush, go back into that yellow, skip a petal, and come over here. Still need a little bit more pigment in there. This is just a light kind of cream colored flower petal. We'll do one there. We'll go ahead and do one right here. We'll do one here. And one here, and let that kind of be soaking into the paper. And then we'll go back and add that dark little variegated center. Into the pink. And touch. If you ever get too much water, keep your little blotter nearby. You can just kind of blot that a little bit and touch and touch and touch. I like using the watercolor pen brush. This is what we use for nails, but I love that to kind of help pinpoint and just add just a little bit of water here so that blends nicely. We're not blending it, we're letting the water actually do the job there. So now we're going to dry. You're loving this, June? Yay! I'm so glad. Hi, clients. Watercolor changes the color just a little bit as it dries. Is it a heat gun? No, it's the end of my Conair curling brush. I use it for my alcohol inks. All right, now you can go in and do the one right beside of it. And we'll go ahead and do this one. And we only put a little bit on her. Let's grab that one too. Grab our pink. Pink and pink. Look how pretty. It's so relax. You know what? This is my therapy when I'm not doing nails. I have a giant, I'm talking giant watercolor collection. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So when I was thinking about putting this class together, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what can I do to make this easier for brand new watercolorists? Well, number one, having the pattern helps because you don't have to freehand it. Touch and touch. This is the mini 3D brush I'm using for this portion. And now our flower petals are done. You can see they've kind of bled outside. That doesn't matter. That does not matter. That is typical of watercolor. So don't get hung up on that. In our green watercolor over here, I have both dark green, olive green, and black. I'll show you. This is the olive green right there. I pulled that. This green beside of it's more like a teal green. Use that one sparingly. It looks like a crayon box. I don't like greens that look like they come from crayon box. And then so I can deepen that, I'm gonna take just a little bit of this brown or black, I don't even know which one, and just mix that in. And so now there is the shade of green I'm using. That's pretty pigmented. I'll want that a little bit lighter, so I'll just add some water to it as I need it. Okay, so while those petals finish, we're gonna grab the leaves down here. Let's just test this kind of full strength and see where I'm at. Oh, that's fairly light. I don't mind that. Now what I'm gonna do is let's take the green and the black and let's just do a really concentrated area of that. I'm gonna lay that right there. That's green and black together. Okay, I'll take my brush in here and I wanna touch at the back end of my little leaf here, same way, so I get some shading in my leaf. And look, if you've let it dry too long and it's not kind of blending like you want it, take just a little plain water and touch and it'll blend that on out. So you're gonna shade your leaves just like you have shaded the petals. Right over top. I do like to blot the free edge of my leaf so it's a little bit lighter. And then that concentrated color and touch. Same thing here. Let's catch a couple of these at the same time. There, there. There's baby one. Y'all seeing how quick this goes? This would make really pretty greeting cards. It would make place cards. I think anything handmade is usually a treasure. And people have lost the art of sending cards now. And so now our leaves are done. This is a little, like a little curly Q on that particular leaf. I'm gonna take just a little bit of that green and just kind of do that sort of thing. And now wash that out. Let that just fade outside the lines. Well, I'm glad you came, Tracy, even though you're late. It's okay. Now, while that, let's see, let's put a little bit of green in here too, right in the middle. Again, available tomorrow on the website. This pattern will be there. You get the pattern, you get the class downloaded to your student portal, and you get a print of my original watercolor with glitter and the gold leafing and all for $9. Okay, while those finish drying, I'm gonna go around the edge a little bit. Look how I've framed out the edge of this painting. So it just kind of looks like it's not floating out here in space. That's just a tiny bit of blue, really, really, really watered down. It's mostly water and a little bit of watercolor paint, mostly. And I'm putting that on dry paper. I'm not wetting that ahead of time. Now just plain water, and blot. A little bit here. Oh, that's a lot, girl. There we go. See how easy that was to fix? Let's even it out and put just a little bit more right over in that corner. This is something I would love to start monthly, is a painting a night. Like, I've only been painting a half an hour and this is almost done. Almost. And I'm gonna make it super easy by always having my patterns available for you guys. Now that's all I do in the background. Look, you could put a little bit here if you wanted. That's gonna be really pretty when I take the tape off of there. So what looks like a hot mess right now is going to turn into this little lady. Let's go ahead and dry this really good. While I'm drying, if you have questions that I've not acknowledged just because I haven't seen them, I'll try to ask it again and I'll try to answer it. Oh, Elizabeth, what book are you, is it a coloring book? Share with us. I don't know if you can hear me talking over this dryer or not. Yeah, she's so pretty. Really concentrating on these corners. I want that to be nice and dry before I take the tape off. All right, we're done with watercolor. Now I've got a bunch of watercolor mixed up in my palette here. I don't want to spill this on my painting. I'm going to leave this open and let it dry because you saw me rehydrate that. And I could really go to town and make a lot of these. Let me kind of get her out of the way here. In my little egg dish. I love her for watercolor. Now you can untape it. You want to take off the last one that you put on first. When you're pulling off your tape, pull away from your painting. So I'm kind of pulling that way. Don't get in a hurry. Sometimes I'll tear my paper if I'm trying to take that off too quickly. See what a nice little crispy edge that gives by just laying down that little bit of blue that we put in there. Pretty. Okay. These are the star of the show. Do not, if you don't have these, they are a little bit pricey. I get these at an art store in Raleigh, but you can also get them at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You can get them from Amazon, but I've not had good luck from the Amazon ones. They're either dried up or the tips are really compressed on them. This is what we call Micron. That is the brand name of these pens. This is an 003 and an 005. And I have this, I have this Sharpie here to compare it to. This is the most fine point Sharpie that Sharpie makes. These are 10 times finer. Like, you can hardly see the nib on there. This is the tiniest one here. This is usually what I sign my artwork with. The 005 is what we're going to outline with. So now we're going to take our little hearts and make sure we're dry. Yeah, I'm just going to trace around my heart. And look, I don't want this, well, I'll explain that when I get to the flowers. Let me go down to the flowers. I don't want this perfect like the pattern is. I want my line to be a little bit wavy so that it looks hand painted. Do you see how wavy my lines are on here? They're not perfect like they are in here. So we start, wiggle, 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 and now pull into that middle. We gave that a little character. You want to do the same thing with your hearts. Wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle and pull in. These pins do not bleed at all. Do you have these pins, Elizabeth? They also make them in colors, but not very many colors. Maybe like brown, navy. I have the chocolate ones and I have the black ones. And now wiggle, 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 press, let up. See what pretty character that gives your flower versus how the sketch is. And I promise you, it takes no time to do this whatsoever. Where you can go wrong in a heartbeat is using the wrong paper and using the wrong watercolor. Watercolors were never made to be milky. If you have a watercolor set that's milky and lots of pastel colors, I would run away from that, girl. As an artist, that's a no for me. Because then you lose the transparency of your work. Now look, you see there's a little watercolor outside that leaf. That's good. That actually shows us that this is hand painted. It does. It does. Elizabeth, it takes the training of, I call it the training of the mind to do this, because we're so trained to do nails perfect that when it comes to artwork, we want it to be perfect. And if it's not, then we get all upset about it. And something like this needs the imperfections in it. It needs that eclectic, hand-drawn, handmade look. And look, I'm just adding lib here. Little curly Q down here. I'm gonna add an extra one on it. And I'll add an extra one there. Is everybody following me? So now I'm just gonna trace my little hearts. And they really need the same kind of character. Don't try to be too perfect, because these hearts are going to get glittered inside. These are little heart balloons, in case you didn't know. And that one goes under there. This one goes under here. In there. Yeah, it's true, Elizabeth. It is. And look, if you suffer from any kind of anxiety, here I go being a coach again, anxiety or nervous energy, or you just tend to be a worrisome person, this type of activity can really, really help ground your mind and your senses. And it takes your mind off of that thing you're worrying about and puts it in another place, because you have to have the hand-eye coordination to do this. And it is a huge, huge stress reliever. People have proven that painting, especially watercolor that's free form and free flowing like this, can be just as beneficial as a paid therapy session can be. And you got 3 little babies over here. Make sure that's dry before I touch it. Again, give these little girls some character on your hearts. A Sharpie pen tends to bleed anyway on your watercolor paper. I highly do not recommend Sharpies for your watercolor. It's the texture of the paper, but these microns just stay really, really smooth. There's another little balloon string right there. And there's one right there. Let's get the center of our flower in. And we're done with that. Real quick, I have some Elmer's school glue. I'm going to grab a piece of paper here so I can glitter on this. I'm going to take one of my little butter pat dishes. I've already watered this down significantly, but I'm going to water it some more. You just need a tiny bit into your water. Yes, micron pens are also archival. Now, it's very important if you want this artwork to last your lifetime. Everything I'm using is acid-free tonight. You know, that's what's years ago what made your granny's pictures turn yellow, is the paper those photographs were printed on was not acid-free. This is a 00 brush that I only use in water for watercolor or whatever, and I'm just going to stir up that little glue mix with it here. Tiny bit more glue. You want this like the consistency of peanut butter when you melt it in the microwave. Okay, this is where our glitters come in that I've pulled. Doll face and wisteria. I'm going to start with the largest ones because it takes those longer to dry. You just paint this on, and then you're going to glitter right over top. I can actually paint a couple of these because of the dry time. I have some flexibility here. Oh, I think we can do one more. now I want to just check my edges and refine those around the heart edges here. If I'm sending a card to somebody, now obviously I keep a little stack of pre-made thank you cards, but I prefer to sit down and make their card. I'm going to sprinkle the dark in the bottom. I'm going to do this one a little different, and I'm going to sprinkle the light in the top. Have a little variegated heart here. We'll see what that looks like. Oh, honey. Well, Donna, I think that would depend if you were going to make a greeting card or what you were going to turn it into. Greeting card would go on cardstock, obviously. Okay, let's keep going. You got to work fairly quickly. This glue will dry out rather fast in your brush. Let's catch these little guys over here. Now, if I'm doing like a print of my alcohol inks, I used to print those myself. I have a very expensive printer, or several, over at headquarters. You know, we've got label printers, we got all the things, but I have a nice art printer over there. I've had less than a year, and when I tell you it has paper feed issues, it has paper feed issues. I've been so frustrated with what we paid for that printer for it not to want to feed paper through it. Art paper, that is. So if I have someone that buys a print from me or that commissions me for a print, I just take it to a professional print shop and have it done. I'm done with, you know, spending all this money in high-end printers and then they not work. FedEx is one of the best printing stations that I have around here, and they let me bring my own paper also. Once in a while I print on velvet paper, which is beautiful. It's a little pricey, but it is very, very pretty. Makes a nice print. And we're just going to keep filling in here. These little baby hearts, just be real careful when you get up in there. That's why it doesn't really matter. If you're going to glitter your hearts, it doesn't matter if you get that background color on them or not. No worries. Now, if you go paint them, obviously, you would see that color through it. In the store right now, watercolor wise, the Russian watercolor palette is on sale, and that palette has been discontinued. What we have of the Russian watercolor palette is all we have. It's in the buy one get one half off. So technically you could buy that palette, and then you could get this palette half off for what I used tonight. Also, we have several metallic palettes in the sale that are very, very nice. It helps to have your arsenal built up for when you want to sit down and do something. And I think we'll make her this color. There we go. Now, the glitter that I'm going to pour off of here, obviously, is going to make a new shade. Because I've put that on paper, I'm not going to throw that away. I am going to archive this little bit of glitter into something I can use on another watercolor painting. Be sure you get that 00 brush into water right away. Look Look how pretty that is. And it takes no time for that to dry. The next day, 24 hours after I do something like this, I do lay it in between a heavy book. You can see how this one's laying a little bit flatter than what this one is laying. I just give it that, kind of like press it in between pages. And now we've got all this glitter we can save. We've made a brand new color. We're gonna get rid of her. We're almost done. Almost. All right, last but not least, this little guy I get at Michael's. This is from the Zig memory system. This is a two-way glue pen. It's blue when it comes out, but when it's fully dry or ready for you to use, it turns clear. And what happens with this is it's a double-sided sticky tape glue pen. When you put it on, it sticks to your surface, and as it dries, the top of it stays sticky. So technically, it could hold that glitter, but I would constantly get shed off of that. It would have to be like our glitter mist in the little misty bottles you would use this for. So this has a little pump down in there, a little roller ball. So when you press, let's get her started here. So press and lift up, press and lift up, and then you eventually run out of glue and you got to press it again, and that feeds the glue. There's also a little squeezy here. Okay, so we want this really irregular edge around the heart. We don't want that to be all one width. Can you see that? You see right here where I've set my glue pen down and I've drug it, and then I set the glue pen down again. That's where I'm dispersing the glue from. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to zoom in just a little so you can see what I'm doing on this edge. You're going to press and let up on the pressure. Okay, and where you've run out of glue, you're going to press again and let up on the pressure and press, let up and press and let up and press. This pen also holds nail foil. Ding, 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 ding. When it dries, you can foil this beautifully. And look, you don't have to put a sealer over your foil when it's on an artwork like this. If I am just doing a watercolor without any 3D embellishments, I will seal it. But I won't seal this one because I can't with the glitter on it. And now go all the way down to that little middle there. Don't worry about any watercolor that's outside of your pattern. It's just gonna look perfect. Perfectly imperfect. And press. And go down to the side there. There's a little bit, there's just a little bit of that goes up through here. Go up to there. We're going to kind of bring that heart on through here. There's a little leaf I forgot to outline. And then I'm going to put some just little dots right in the middle. And now we just wait for that to dry. You either have to let it dry or you gotta make it dry. Y'all gonna be saying that, right? So I'm gonna make mine dry with my little heat tool. And remember, when it's dry, it turns clear. Jess, I'll show you real quick. They come in different sizes. Let me dry this and I'll show you one I just added to my little collection here. And they last forever. I've probably had this thing 4 years. They're very long lasting. Okay, see how she's turned clear? That's all it took to dry it. Okay, so I have two like this, but I just got this one. Look at this one. Girl, look how big that is. I've not primed it yet. I think this would be great on a poster or a frame, or I'm getting ready to paint some frames for my bathroom upstairs, put my doggies' pictures in. The only thing I could find was white. I'm going to paint them gold. But after I paint it gold, I could go through with this big two-way glue pen, put a little bit on there, let it dry, and then I could foil it in those areas where the adhesive is at. So yeah, this is a big one, honey. She does mean business, don't she? All right, now this is the tedious part. I know some of y'all will say, girl, I don't have time for that. Well, you could use a gold leafing sheet, like from Michael's, but it's not as brilliant as this. It don't look as good, honey. And this, I got enough this for 10 years. What you talking about? I would never use all this on nails. And a lot of y'all have this set. So just take your little leafing and start going around the edge here. Just hang tight with me. We're almost done. Just pop it onto that double-sided sticky tape line that you put on there. Look, I like to grab me a bunch and just kind of go along just like that. And just go up the side with it. Because I'm going to keep this, I'm not going to throw away what I don't use. I don't work on humans' nails anymore. So it doesn't matter to me if I'm using this on a watercolor painting or in a class. You know, an online class that I would do. Just keep going right around that edge. Here we go. It's already pretty. Already pretty. Take your handy dandy sponge. You'll start down here at the bottom where you first laid that on. Be careful because your hearts might still be wet a little. And now you're just going to burnish that. Look here. Just burnish that into that two-way glue line that you put on there. Now this needs no sealer whatsoever where it's on paper. My belly's hungry. I've not had dinner. Whoopsie, I smudged my glitter a little. I told y'all be careful and I smudged mine right there. That's okay. I'll go back and fix it. I don't want to get too aggressive around my little glitter hearts over here. I'm going to let that dry just a little bit more before I brush all the excess of that off of there. But isn't that beautiful? Let's fix it. Let's see if we can lift this up. I doubt it because that's wet glue. I'm going to let that dry and I'll go back and retouch that a little. But that is how we finish our painting now. And I got all this left that I can put back in my jar. Let me grab that out of the way just real fast. There we go, GGO. What you think? Are you gonna try it? Very informative. You're very welcome, Tammy. I do too, Ramona. It helps me feel like I get my money's worth out of my products. Now listen, let me remind you, the buy one get one half sale, because Shopify is not that smart. When you check out, you're gonna get half off of whatever is the lowest priced item. So you might have $299 classes in your cart and one brush, and it's going to give you the discount off of the brush. So if you're wanting to check out and get the discount on, if this is your classes, put your classes on a separate order and make sure you have an even number in there. So if you buy one, you get one at half off. I've told everybody since last night, do a separate order, maximize on your discounts. Get your brushes all in one order, get your paints on a different order, get your online classes on a different order, and that way you're rest assured that you'll take advantage of those discounts. There's no limit on how many times you can use your coupon. So tomorrow night, I can't remember what's on my agenda for tomorrow night. I'll be live again tomorrow night using something else that's in the buy one get one half off sale. So thank y'all for joining me. If you'd like to see more classes like this, please let me know. I'll be happy to do it for you. Y'all have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Yes, I know it's still on, June. I'm just letting people have a peek-see before I shut it off. Yep, we know. Thank you, though.